Okay, hello, welcome to H3 Hope, Happiness, and Health. I am the acapellist, and with me is Brother Scott Sweetman. Brother Scott, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, actually. Thank you. We were just talking about that and accidentally were online. But yeah, no, I'm doing really good. Thank you. And
Excellent.
as you can see, I have a special background behind me again.
I see
Um,
that.
yeah. Any idea what these fellas are?
Kidneys, I imagine. Is that right?
They are, yeah. It's surprising when I was looking at it how some of the diagrams of your kidneys and testicles look the same. So I had to be pretty careful that I didn't actually have a background of testicles behind me.
Exactly. That's
Yeah,
right.
that could lead to misconceptions about our show, I think,
Exactly. Exactly. Get us banned or something.
or something.
Cool.
Yeah,
So
cool.
we're
And
going to be talking about kidney health and what you do to keep your kidneys pink and healthy and running good. Is that correct?
yeah, and this came out of sort of a conflagration of two things. We were talking about vitamin D, right, on
Hmm.
our last show, and the kidneys are really important for helping the vitamin D be bio useful in
Hmm.
our cell. I made bio useful up, but you know what I mean. Um,
Bioavailable.
yeah, but more so not just available, but the actual processing.
Okay.
Of
Okay.
It's a little bit of a complicated process, so I'm a little fuzzy on it, but it made it quite clear that it was part of the actual consuming of the vitamin D in our body or turning it into other things. Or yeah, I was surprised growing up, health class, whatever. Kidneys process urine, done,
Yeah.
right? Don't eat too much salt, okay. Don't drink too much, you know that was like the liver, and that was pretty much it. But when you actually study them, our little kidneys do a terrific amount of things, and anyone who's ever had kidney disease knows exactly how complicated they are as an organ.
Yeah.
We're pretty fascinating, just how all these little pieces do so many things.
So incredible. So incredible how complicated our body is and how it just runs like that, that your heart keeps beating while it, starts when you're in your mother's womb and will continue for your last beat when you're whatever it is, 80, 90, 100 years old, right? That's incredible. Like that's a miracle.
Even our friend Elon Musk wishes that he could create an automobile that would run for 90 years, sometimes 90 plus years of abuse and misuse. And, we're nowhere close to any kind of, you know,
No.
nothing, like just the smallest number of our systems. So another name for the kidney system is the renal system, as you know. Have you ever gone in renal failure?
No.
I have. It's not
You
fun.
have.
Yeah.
That's not good. That's not good.
Yeah. No, when I had the whole thing in Japan, the first thing was I went into respiratory failure, and at that point you're like a fish, right? They trach you, they put a thing down your throat, and then the next system to go is usually the renal system, and once that goes, you're in real trouble because then they start falling quick. Your pulmonary system and all sorts of things start shutting down after the renal system. So they definitely don't like it when that happens. It usually means things are sliding quick. So not a lot of fun. But there are a lot of people who suffer through kidney disease. Can you take a rough guess at the average in North America of people who have kidney disease?
I think it's probably more than 12.
Oh, yeah, it is. Surprisingly, it's 33 point something percent.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, I was surprised. Were you surprised?
Yeah, that's a huge number. I would never thought that. So,
Yeah,
huh.
I've known three people in my life that had one kidney. Two of them were operated on, and one of them was born with only one kidney.
Hmm.
Have you known anyone with either kidney disease or short a kidney for some reason?
I'm pretty sure my little sister, when she got hit by a car, lost a kidney in that accident. I believe that was a kidney that went. Yeah, because you got two kidneys, but you only got one liver, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So she
Look,
lost
look
one of
at
her
my picture,
kidneys.
Al. Look at my picture. There's two.
Yeah, two. Yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah, your sister lost a
yeah.
kidney. How old is she?
She was man. I'm gonna say that she was like about 8 when she got hit by a car. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that's
And it was
nuts.
funny when she was in the hospital and the doctor is saying, "Oh, we had to remove, one of your organs." And she said, It wasn't my heart, was it?
Yeah. Do you know if it caused her any problems the rest of her life?
I don't think so. She's a very robust, in very robust health. Yeah, I don't think it really slowed her down at all. So yeah.
Yeah, no, both of the people that I knew, one, I can't say her name because I don't have her permission, but a person that I worked with for a lot of years in culture, and they were born with one regular kidney and one kind of shriveled kidney.
Hmm.
And it was something they had to live with. She still drank and did live life normally, but they always tested it and made sure that, you know, everything was doing okay and doing all right. But just recently, Fleur's father, Peter, had his kidney removed. I think I mentioned that in the last show. And he's getting up there. Peter's in his late 80s, like getting close to cracking 90. And pretty active, doesn't smoke, doesn't drink really. You know, he might have a celebratory sip or something with a wedding or something. But he, you know, lives a pretty healthy life, still does all his own gardening and everything. And went up for the kidney, and it was going to be a day surgery, but they decided there was a little extra bleeding, and because of his age, they were going to keep him in for observation overnight. They did that, and I think 4 or 5 days later, he was back home in Patricia and out gardening again. So
nice.
Yeah, and he's had 2 checkups now since they took it out, and both have been good. And he's lost weight. His appetite's a bit different, and he doesn't feel great. But I mean, that could be the operation, right? Operations are really traumatic on us when they're not,
Sure.
even when they're right. So yeah, so that's what kind of got us to the show about keeping your kidneys healthy. And,
Yes.
So things that kidneys do, I looked it up because, like I said, growing up, I just thought they were to do with your urine, and basically they were like a filter akin to the liver. But they regulate body fluid levels. That's an important one. You take blood pressure pills or no? No. I do. My entire family, hereditary high blood pressure. And yeah, it's been quite common in the past that they used to call them water pills,
Mm-hmm.
right? Diuretics.
Yeah.
To try and lower the water level, the fluid level in your body, which helps lower blood pressure. And I guess that works on your kidneys, makes you urinate more, which lowers the water level in your body, and goes from there. So filters waste and toxins from the blood. Number 2, releases a hormone that regulates blood pressure. So there we get the tie-in with blood pressure again, right? And I think that's why it's such a big deal when your renal system fails. Again, not a nurse or a doctor, but crashing blood pressure is a big one. And I know with me, they said right after the renal system, the pulmonary system will go down, and then they're in real trouble. So, yeah, it activates vitamin.
What's all the parts of the renal system? What's part of the renal system?
Oh,
the kidney, obviously. But what else?
Yeah, well, your urethra, and I forget what the tube connected to your bladder are. Bladder is probably part of the renal system.
Okay.
I used to know. I looked it up, but it's that whole waste removal system, but it also controls the fluid level of your body. And our bladder is really just a storage tank with a tip valve in it, right? That says, oh, full, dump, or not full. And as we get older, the muscle gets less elastic. And that's why we find, especially men, have to go to the little boys' room in the middle of the night more often, is because our bladders have gotten less elastic. They don't shrink. They just can't expand like they used to. So, but again, that's to deal with that. If it's becoming a real health problem, the doctors give a medication that helps the kidneys not process things and fill the bladder up, is my understanding. So it also releases the hormone that directs production of red blood cells. That's a big one, right? Red blood cells are incredibly important to the human body. And they keep blood minerals in balance: sodium, phosphorus, and potassium. Right, the salt sort of family thing. So they whacked, and when a kid's sick or an animal, Shirley Corolla, if there's a colt that's gotten sick, first thing we do is give it electrolytes, right, to reestablish that blood salt mineral balance. So
Yeah.
pretty good stuff. Is there any more you can think of that kidneys do? Those are the main 6, I think.
No, you're teaching me. You're teaching me more than I know about them. So
I'm sharing anyway. So the 8 big problems that kidneys can cause, and this is, on our show we talk about stuff to try and help people. And where I'm going with this is 33% of our population, over 33%, will have kidney disease. And most often, and I'm jumping ahead with this stat, most often people find it in the final stages when it could have been detected much earlier, when it's much more treatable. But unfortunately, it's not something that gets detected early often enough. And so we're talking about that in hopes that our goal is that people think about it and maybe remember to ask their doctor, hey, why don't you have a look at my renal system and see how that's doing? Because sometimes doctors, they're human too, right? And maybe they're focused on another problem or some other issue. Because what do you get with a doctor now? Like 15 minutes or something on average? Less?
Yeah, exactly. As long as the type to write a script often, right? So
yeah, absolutely. So if you have problems with your kidneys, weak bones, right? That's that whole calcium, vitamin D thing. Heart disease, heart attack and stroke, and that's the blood pressure, blood mineral balancing thing that kidneys involved in. Kidney disease can directly put you at risk, like losing it doesn't have to be a secondary condition. Simply having kidney failure can put your life at risk. You can die from that. Nerve damage, neuropathology or pathogy, and that's a really complicated process, and I didn't really completely understand how all that worked. But it gets out of balance. The nerves can't communicate properly. They get damaged in the process. End of story. And anemia or low red blood count. So people who take iron are often encouraged to ensure that their kidneys are very healthy and have their kidneys tested often if they're anemic. And then, like I said, end-stage kidney disease, or they call it ESRD, early stage renal disease is the medical name for it. And that's when the signs have been missed and the kidneys are basically dying. And that's a transplant's the only thing. Like if you have one good kidney, you can survive. But if both kidneys are damaged to what they call an end-stage failure, you need a transplant. That's the only option. There's nothing. Okay. Can you guess the main risks, Al? What do you think the main risks for kidney disease would be?
Well, from what you're saying, you could have heart attacks and strokes was one of them. Is like that's probably the one that's going to be the quick life ender, or quick, the more drastic consequences from that than other things that would kind of more slowly impact your ability to function, right? That's the way I'm assuming it works anyways.
Right. I'm asking though, what conditions might encourage is the wrong word because it sounds positive, but conditions that, or factors that would possibly lead to kidney disease.
Okay. Right. So medication.
Yes.
Right? Medication beats the hell out of your kidneys. Yeah. Yes.
That's a big one. Huge one. Very good.
Yeah.
And then some more, and that's the one people aren't really aware of. And one study I read that taking too much like ibuprofen over a number of years can destroy your kidneys. Yes, it seems harmless because we can buy it over the counter. There's a whole bunch of articles on countries like Canada where we have very permissive over the counter practices, And the problem is a lot of people think, oh, I can buy it over the counter. It's not a real drug. It's not that strong.
Right.
Where, yeah, many of the drugs we have across the counter here are illegal or scheduled drugs in other countries.
I did not know that.
Oh yeah, Japan has, and as Canadians or Americans or many other countries, we can bring them in for our own use, but they're like very careful. They will count how many Tylenol or codeine or whatever you can get. So interesting. Yeah. So diabetes, you hit a big important one that we're going to talk about, and that's medication. Diabetes in you or your family. Like if your family has a history of diabetes, that raises your risk for kidney disease. High blood pressure, again, you or your family. Heart disease, again, you and your family. Of course, if you have a family history of kidney disease, then you should look at it. And the thing that's always bad for us in all forms, obesity. Those are the two. So any of those things can lead to a greater risk of kidney disease or kidney failure. Additional risk, people over 60, right? 60 or older. I wonder if that's like our normally in warranty period is sort of 60 and under, because a lot of things seem to go wrong after about 60, right? Low birth weight contributes, is another risk factor they've connected to kidney disease. And I know with the twins, and I mentioned it before, they had twin-to-twin transference. So the blood vessels in the placenta get crossed, and one twin's cardiac system was working for both of them, and the other twin's renal system was processing urine for both of them. And so actually they were more concerned about the renal issue than the heart issue. So, but that's why they had to be harvested a month early. So yeah, prolonged use of NSAIDs, right? Ibuprofen. What are some of the other ones?
Tylenol, is that one?
Yeah, a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. Yeah, that group, right?
Yeah.
Those can contribute to it if you take them for a long time. Lupus and other autoimmune disorders, and that's something we've heard a lot more about recently, is, we're starting to realize that our bodies sometimes attack ourselves. Yeah. Right? Autoimmune issues. And kidney stones and chronic urinary tract infections, UTIs. And I was reading another article that they said if you've had more than a couple of UTIs in a row, get your kidneys checked. Get your doctor to check your kidneys, because it can actually, the urinary tract infection can spread up into your kidneys, or it may be an indication that there's a problem with your kidneys and things are coming the other way. And kidney stone, it can be a sign of issue. You ever had a kidney stone?
No, I hear they're very, very painful, but I've never had one. Have you?
No, but our good friend Dennis, he's had a couple, and he had one where they had to use some sort of sound wave to break it up. Like he said, he said it's the most painful thing he's ever experienced. He's never ever, sort of even beyond what you can imagine. It's incredibly painful. Different for everyone, of course, but most people that have ever had one say that it's like incredible pain. And sometimes they go away, or sometimes they need to be addressed. So as we always say, knowing that you're a risk for something is a good indicator to go get checked for it. But don't wait, even if you have a clean slate. If it hasn't been checked in a while, you're getting a little older, you're concerned about it, ask your doctor or healthcare provider to do a test, right? Can doctors refuse those kind of tests? Al, you would know better than I do.
I think that they would certainly, they're the gatekeeper, right? So if they decide that I don't think if the doctor says he doesn't think you need the test, you're not going to get it unless you're going to go and just pay for it privately, right? But I believe that's the case, that they can use their judgment to determine what test he or she can use their judgment to determine what tests are legitimate and appropriate and which are not. I believe that's how it works.
Under our healthcare system, and again, you'll know much better than I, aren't we entitled to a second opinion if we don't think that our our healthcare provider is maybe acting in our best interest, or if we just want to confirm something. I thought I read that was a right somewhere that we had.
It
No?
makes sense that it would be, right? That like, that your what would you call it? Your ability to take care of your own body, that you should have lots of options in order to do that. But I think part of the problem is though, if how do you in practical terms, how do you make that happen, right? If you're going to go see a kidney specialist, what are they called? A nephrologist? Is that what they're called? A kidney specialist thing? If you're going to go see a nephrologist, it might take you 8 months to get in one, right? And then
Right.
how's it going to work to do a second opinion of that, right?
Perfect.
Except that depending on some group plans have a second opinion benefit, and if the condition is something that's severe, you can get a second opinion through that sort of service. And really what they do is collect the data from your doctor, send it to a specialist who reviews it, and then provides a report back to you to say, hey, this is the diagnosis. We agree. We think we need another test to be sure. Here's the treatment plan. We agree with the treatment plan, or no, we think this would be a better treatment plan, right? That kind of a thing.
Do you have to pay for that?
Generally they're included in most group plans, that the second opinion. Now it has to be something relatively severe, right? But it sounds like with things related to the kidney, it would qualify, you would think, right? Because that's
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, that's cool. That's interesting, because so many of the things that we look at, they tell you to ask your doctor to run a test, right? And one of my doctors was really big against testosterone because he had a bad result from giving a patient testosterone, and he just wouldn't prescribe it. And I never thought of asking another doctor to do it, but when he retired, then the doctors in Edmonton immediately put me on it. So I was wondering, maybe if it's possible or not. So yeah, another reason to get group benefits, I guess. Okay, so trouble signs. These are 8 possible trouble signs. Everyone should know these. Everyone knows the symptoms of a heart attack, right? Rightly or wrongly. I guess there's a lot of myth about heart attacks, but symptoms of renal trouble are really important to recognize too, especially if you're over 60 and you have any of those other risk factors, right? So fatigue and weakness. The problem I have with that is it's almost on everything involving our internal organs, right? Like True. If you feel tired and weak, and it could even be psychological.
Sure.
Not that you're pretending that you're weak or tired, but lots of mental conditions can make us feel that way, right? Difficult or painful urination. That's a big sign. Don't ignore that. There's very few conditions where urinating should be painful. That usually means something is going on. So they said, check that one out. Foamy urine, and this has something to do with protein. If it's easier for boys because we're facing the toilet, but if you notice a lot of bubbles, that could be soap in the water, but it also could be foam in your urine. And I had a nurse explain it to me one time. There's a type of protein in urine, which we'll talk about. And if there's too much sugar or protein, it can cause a change in smell and bubbles to occur. And so back in the old days, somebody would have to smell the urine sample and they would glean a lot of information from that. That's been quite a few decades for now, but I can't imagine doing that all day and then coming home and you sure appreciate the smell of your own house by that point, I would guess.
I would think.
Yeah. Pink or dark urine usually means there's blood in the urine.
Right.
That's a time. Although back when I was bouncing, everyone would say, oh, if your pee is pink, you've got you took a punch to the kidneys or something. But there can be other things causing that. It doesn't have to be just your kidneys, right? Like it could be a tear, a fissure in the urethra tube. It could be lots of things. So don't necessarily panic, but do get it looked into, right? Increased thirst, that goes to that whole balancing of blood pressure and fluid. Puffy eyes, and I never did find why puffy eyes, but they're listed in almost every list I looked at. Can you imagine why that would be? No, me either.
Well, I mean, if it's controlling the how much liquid is in your system, right? And
Yeah.
I guess that's retaining liquid that would make the puffiness in your eyes, I would have to think, right?
Yeah, that's the next one. Swollen face, hands, abdomen, ankles, or feet.
Mm,
Uh, those are any swelling in those areas could be a kidney issue,
mm,
and then of course increased urination suddenly, especially at night.
mm.
Those are the things. The answer to all those things is one of our favorite things to recommend: get tested, right?
You bet.
Especially if you have any of the signs in a high risk group. I'm sure if you go to your doctor and you have any of those things and say, you know what, I really want my renal system checked and my kidneys checked, they will say, sure, no problem, because it's just a blood test, right? It's not a
Yeah.
big, long, drawn out kind of thing. So they said be insistent if necessary, especially if you have the last one, which is talking about is that if you have any of those high risks, make sure that you're insistent about getting the test. Don't take no for an answer, because the rate is 33%, right? That's quite high for an
Right.
occurrence. The simple life-saving test you can do for kidneys, blood pressure test, right? Do you ever check your own blood pressure?
Yep.
Yeah, me too. 3-4 times.
We have a machine at home. You got one at home? Yeah.
Made by a company that I used to work for in Japan, Omron.
Really? Cool.
Interesting stuff. Yeah. So high blood pressure can damage small blood vessels. They're called, and I struggled with this one, glomeruli in the kidneys. They're fingery kind of looking things. They almost look like a flower petal if you see a dissected view of the kidney. And they're the thing that filters in the blood and filters out the contaminants, etc. So high blood pressure can damage them and is the second leading cause of kidney failure after diabetes.
Wait a minute. The kidney and the liver both filter blood?
Yeah. Well, kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
That's so I'm with you, but that's what it says, that they filter from the fluid, which is partially blood, and that's why there's a concern if there's blood in there. I'm just 2 seconds here.
All right.
I want to answer this one because the kidneys primarily don't filter blood, but I'm learning something that I didn't. Yep. Your kidneys, uterus, and bladder are part of your urinary tract. You have 2 kidneys that filter your blood.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
That's good. I thought I'd gone crazy there. I got the sun beating down on me here, so that's why I'm all nice and shiny.
Nice.
So yeah, get your blood pressure checked. A good score below 140/90 is good for most people. Of course, it depends on age and fitness level and stuff, but that's a good one. Protein in your urine. This is the one I was talking about. Traces of albumin, ALBUMIN. Can you pronounce that better than I can?
Albumin, as I believe how it's pronounced.
That makes sense. Maybe an early stage of kidney disease. Mm-hmm. And regular amounts and other proteins in the urine indicate kidney damage. So I know that sometimes that mine's a little bit elevated and they're like, it's not enough to worry about. Apparently less than 30 milligrams per gram of urine is okay. That's normal. So some of it is normal. And then a GFR test. And so that measures those little glomerular fingers that I was talking about. Do you know how to pronounce that properly?
Glomerular, perhaps.
That works for me. Okay, and this test reveals how well they're working. Okay. And if they're not working well, then that indicates that there's an issue somewhere on. Over 90 is good. 60 to 89 should be monitored. Less than 60 for 3 months indicates kidney disease. So big one. So I think we can take away from that. First of all, lots of people have kidney issues and don't realize it.
Yeah.
Often left until it's late stage, and your options then are much less than they are to begin with. You can avoid a lot of things to help your kidneys stay healthy, and you can do things that can directly hurt your kidneys, and some of them are very sort of non-threatening kind of things that most people do, right? Like take ibuprofen. So, still with me so far?
Sure am.
I know you were working like a dog today, so
I will.
yeah, if you have any kidney risk, one of the things you should do is lower your blood pressure, manage blood sugar, reduce salt intake. That's an interesting one. You came to me for a little thing the other day so that you could add salt to your diet. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Well, I was watching this guy. His name is Dr. Zach Bush, and he was talking about drinking water. That's everybody knows you should drink water, but if you drink water, just water normally, then 45 minutes later or so, you're going to piss it out, or you're going to release it.
Urinate.
Urinate. That's the word I was looking for. You're going to urinate. And he says a lot of that water doesn't do your cells any good. To do your cells good, the water has to be more of a crystalline type state. So that, and then how you try and get it into a crystalline type state is by using a little bit of very, very tiny bit of like ancient sea salt type stuff, like Himalayan sea salt or those kind of things. And then apparently that has the water kind of change from a liquid to more like a gel, if you will, in your body. And then that's where it is nourishing to your cells.
That's really
Something
interesting.
like that. Yeah.
You know, I've heard, like, we went through this whole thing that salt is bad, and like in my mom's house, never salt ever, like, period, which made her food really, 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 really plain. Lots of pepper, but no salt, which is kind of odd, whatever. And pepper turns out to be good for you in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I was reading a few articles and shorter sort of blurps that recently people might not be getting enough salt because they're avoiding it in their diets. Right. So people who eat very healthy diets and then purposely avoid salt can really lower the amount of salt they intake. Right. Because most of us have really high intakes, especially prepackaged food. Right. Salt's like a huge preservative has been for centuries. Right. And lots of derivatives of salt are used for flavoring, but also preservation, you know, that whole family of things. So anyway, point is that not all salt is bad, and there's a reasonable amount that we need to live, right? Without salt, we die. It's one of those things we need. Okay. Avoid NSAIDs, types of painkillers usually, right? Moderate protein consumption. I don't know about this one. You know, I'm with you. Like, I think we're on the not opposite sides of the fence. Just for me, it's a lifestyle thing. I know lots of great, healthy old guys who ate animal protein their entire life in large amounts, right? But I know people like you who have stopped eating animal protein and actually have gotten younger, right? Your health is better, you're looking better, you're doing better. So have you ever heard of reducing protein consumption to help your kidneys?
Well, here's what I know for sure is that that's one time that people, when they consider, just have the thought about perhaps eating less meat, they think they're not going to get enough protein. But it's like virtually impossible to have a protein deficiency. If you eat like 2,000 calories a day of anything, you're going to get enough protein. Like spinaches have protein, potatoes got lots of protein, vegetables have protein in them, right? So there's the misconception is, oh, the only way I can get enough protein is by eating animal flesh. And that's not, there's absolutely no truth to that. You can get all the protein you need from a variety of different sources.
Cool. And you've experienced that yourself, so
Yes.
you're,
Yes,
you know,
but the first thing when you start saying that you're a plant-based eater, they say, "Oh, how do you get your proteins?" Well, it's really easy. You can't it's impossible to have a deficiency unless you're 500 calories a day or something, right? But if you eat a normal amount of calories, you're going to get enough protein for sure.
yeah. I saw an interview with a guy in England, and there's a lot of studies that equate long life to low caloric intake, right?
Yeah,
So these studies look at cultures and people that have, through sometimes no choice of their own, but low caloric intake, and they live longer. And so this guy was purposefully, he was in his 30s, I think. He was purposefully, and had been for a number of years, keeping his caloric intake incredibly low, like
mm,
just nothing. And his plan was this was going to help him live to like 130, 140 or something like that. But the piece I saw is he was talking to a doctor who had done blood tests on him, and like protein was not anywhere close to the top of list of issues he had. You know, in line with what you're saying, if you drop your caloric intake to those really small levels, there's a whole bunch of stuff that your body needs, just it's not getting, right.
sure. Well, I mean, if you think about that, food intake is providing all your nutrients, right, that you should get. So if you're not eating enough of the foods that are going to give you the nutrients, right? Like, I mean, if you had I'm going to live on 500 calories a day. That's one Twinkie. Yeah, zero nutrient quality, right? So you're not going to be able, your body's not going to get the base things it needs to function in a proper manner, right? So,
I was watching some silly zombie movie or series. It may have been Walking Dead. I don't know. Or what's the one with the guy in it from Cheers? Anyway, they, of course, post-apocalyptic, dystopian kind of thing, and they come across this truck, a Hostess truck,
mm,
whoever makes Twinkies, and not refrigerated, nothing, and they're like, oh, they're all going to be rotten, and so they raced down the hill because they were desperate for this junk food, and open the back of the truck, and they're like pristine, right? Like everything around them is rotten, but not these Twinkies or whatever they were. They were in perfect shape. So yeah, no nutrients, but about 5 years of your preservatives living.
yeah, exactly.
So, one of the other things that showed up in a couple of articles was get your annual flu shot. Where do you stand on flu shots, Al? What do you think?
Well, wait a minute. They're saying for your kidney health, you should get an annual flu shot.
Yeah.
Well, since COVID and having the two vaccinations for that, I have not done any flu shots since then. So I don't know if I'm going to continue along that path. It's just that kind of the thing that surprised me during COVID. The stats that they attributed to COVID deaths were huge, but all of a sudden there were zero deaths related to flu. So flu all of a sudden went to zero when COVID's on the scene, kind of a thing. Something doesn't seem right with those numbers, right? So, anyways, I don't know if I'm as interested in flu shots as I should be now. So maybe that's a misjudgment on my behalf, but that's kind of where. But then you go on the other one where there's people that have had like 6 freaking COVID shots, right? So yeah,
I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I was vaccinated, but just because of the timing, right? Because there was a whole bunch of, they had them and they didn't have them, and you could get them and only under these conditions, and then it was like a farcical comedy. If it wasn't real people and millions of dollars, it would have been funny, but it wasn't. And I ended up getting 2 shots, the least amount in our house. The people with the most shots got like 5, I think, because everyone in the house is a teacher of some kind, basically, right?
mm-hmm.
Even me was safe and those types of things, but I haven't been that mobile recently. But everyone in the house got COVID, but me.
Interesting.
So I asked my doctor, because he's a pretty good guy, and he's like, well, maybe whatever tried to kill you in Japan made you immune to COVID. I don't know. He's like, maybe you're just lucky. Maybe no one likes you, came close to you. I don't know. So yeah. But that did really polarize people's views on vaccinations. I think before that, there was like a fringe group that was, you know, turned down vaccinations regularly.
Yeah.
But now I would say that because of COVID, there's a lot more people that are at least on the fence, if not anti vaccinations. What do you think? Think
I
that's
think
too?
so. Like I'm one of them, right? I used to get my flu shots every year and then now I have not, right? So, and part of it is just like, anyways, I'm not sure whether that's a good decision or not, but that's kind of where I just have not gone to get a flu shot. Whereas before, in the past, before COVID, I did every year. So,
Well, and I think that you and I are really big proponents of taking control over your own health, and
mm,
that cuts both ways, right? Like we generally talk about it, you know, take control of your own health and get out there and get these tests and, you know, do these things that will help prevent this from happening. But it also gives you the I won't say privilege, I think the right to say, yeah, no, I know I've known people that are end of life, right? They're dying from cancer or something else, and they don't want it extended. Like I think my end of life is no heroic measures, right? Like I've been brought back from the dead once. That was enough. Uh, and often when you do, I'm speaking personally now, there's a cost that you don't like. You're all happy, I'm alive, and everyone you love is happy, but lots of times down the road, there's a price to pay, you know, and
mhm.
I've paid that. So I'm really happy at the age I was, and then I've had all these years to spend with my daughters. But if I'm 75 or 80, let me go. Don't
Yeah.
bring me back and keep me on a tube forever. And nothing, no judgment on people that do. Just for me, that's how I feel.
Yeah. Makes sense.
What about you, Al? Do you have a no heroic measures thing in your living will?
Oh, I do. I do. And I know as well that whole, medical assisted dying kind of a thing. I think that makes really good sense. But the thing that I think should make it that I hope it will come to is that you can declare in advance, like when now I'm of sound mind, and I say when this test. Let's say there's a test that's fairly objective, determining your level of health or your cognition or whatever, that kind of a thing. And then, like, if you could say in advance, if you give me this test and I don't get X score, it's lower than this value, then just like, let's call her good. Well, let's wrap this thing up. End of set. We're done.
Send in the clowns. Yeah,
Send
we're
in the clown. Yes.
yeah. That's really interesting, and I think that you know, it's sort of a hot button and a little bit off topic for us, but it's definitely an issue where, you know, lots of people come to the point where they get to not be able to like once I passed out the first time, once I went under, I wasn't capable of answering anything. And even when I woke back up, I was still under the influence. Like I was seeing things and whatever. And for 2 weeks in there, I was not in a fit condition to make decisions. Right. So
Yeah.
that's a case where, like you say, either you had to make those decisions before when you were capable of making them, or, you know, have somebody that you really, really trust to make those hard choices for you, who understands what you consider quality of life, right?
Hmm. Hmm. I don't
Yeah.
know if you remember this. I can't think of his name right now, but he's a Lethbridge doctor that's out of does medical research out of, I'm pretty sure it's McMaster University, and he has a whole kind of a system, end of life type of a protocol, if you will, that where you can document what your wishes are, and then you have that discussion with your family to say, okay, if I am incapable of expressing it, here's my wishes. This is the way I would like this to be. Dr. Darren, what's Darren's last name again? Anyways, he has, I'm gonna look it up. Darren Highland, that's it. Darren Highland, and he has an excellent program. Critical care medicine. Queen's University. All right.
Queens.
Queens, yes.
Good old
Plan
Queens.
Well guide. So that's what he have. He has the results of their research informed the development of two novel free online decision support tools, www.planwellguide.com and www.thecarenet.ca. There was, yes, so those two things. Of his current foci of activity is disseminating awareness of these planning tools. His motto is to live well, age well, and die well. You need to plan well. So that's his thing. He's a very smart man. He's been many times where he has, as an ER doctor, brought somebody, did heroic measures to bring somebody back, and they were a changed person. Like they weren't the same person. And in retrospect, it changed them enough that they wouldn't have wanted to survive that. Right. So that's his kind of to, explain, here's what happens, here's what they put the tubes in, here's the things they do, and then here's the possible consequences from that. Right. So, yeah. So it's a really good, I've done it. It's a very interesting process to go through.
My uncle committed suicide for no reason that the rest of us knew. He was just really unhappy. He was single. He was, lost his career. The economy went bad. This was in the 80s. And he committed suicide in what seemed to us to be perfect mental health. Like, although he was unhappy with his life, like he was not disturbed. He was making judgments normally and doing those kind of things. He just didn't want to be here anymore. So he left, right? And that's always confused me because, he was healthy. He was actually a physical fitness buff. He was in really good shape for his age. And he was single, which I knew bothered him, but there's lots of ways to become unsingle in even 1985. And it was still something I struggle over. And I know that, when I was going through that whole thing in Japan, all I wanted to do was live, to be with my family. Like that was the thing. And I can honestly say that if there was a time machine and I went back to that time, knowing what I would go through now, and I didn't have a family for the support and care and my friends, like you and there's been other great people in there, I might have said, yeah, I don't think I want to see the end of this, because it's hard. And I think that when we talk about issues like, I don't know what the political correct name is for assisted suicide or
medical assistance in dying.
Okay. So yeah, I know that a lot of people, like I'm a religious person. You're a very spiritual person, right? And a lot of times there's a lot of hangups with that. I talked to a Catholic priest, a great fellow, about my uncle, and I said, is my uncle going to go to hell? Because that's the doctrine of the Catholic Church. And he said, well, we've sort of backed off from that. The church has an official doctrine. And we assume that because most people are created in God's image, we're very loving, and at the basis of our nature is love. And love of self is built into us all, right? In terms of self-preservation. And, every animal has, like, animals just don't lay out there and say, yeah, okay, run over me in a normal situation. So, and he was saying that now our official stance is pretty much if somebody commits suicide, they're mentally ill. And if they're sick, then God's not going to condemn them to eternity in hell because they were ill and couldn't make that decision themselves. Right? And I thought that was really interesting. And now as we're getting into a time where, assisted end of life, those types of things are occurring, I think those questions are coming up more and more about, what happens to us and where do we go, and, questions about suicide and those types of things. So I often wondered if I had chosen not to live, would that be suicide? Like if I was late, lots of nights I had to say, you're going to fight, you are going to wake up tomorrow. And, that was during the process. That's one of the things I remembered when I was in coma. I was always fighting to try and get back to my family. And I wonder if that'd be a sin, right? If I just said, yeah, can't take the pain anymore, can't fight any longer. So interesting questions all around that, right?
It is.
We're a little off topic, but that's okay. Another show for
that. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it says, get to know your family medical history. Make sure you do an annual check. Stay hydrated. Only drink alcohol in moderation. I'm sure that goes for drugs too. Quit smoking. Smoking just doesn't seem to be good for anything. Follow a balanced diet. That seems to be a cure-all. Control your weight. I can say from experience, weight is just not cool. And exercise regularly. Something I have found out after putting all this weight when I got sick, you can exercise at any size, and in any health condition. Yeah, there's no, like, there was 2 days ago, my PT was here. We overdid it a bit and I got sick for a while, but he almost everything, every limitation that I have in movement, he has an exercise to get me around that and to help build those muscles to regain that control again, or that strength, or whatever it is. Yeah. So yeah, when I read that, it sort of resonated with me that often we make excuses once we've gotten a bit heavy or really heavy, or we're getting older and our joints don't work as well and stuff. Those become reasons not to exercise, which is just compounding it, right?
So same thing we've talked about before. If you have whatever, a shoulder, knee, hip injury or pain, that kind of a thing, and that prevents you from being physically active, well, then that just kind of compounds the problem, right? Things just get worse and worse that you can't be active, right? So
one of the biggest things that he's taught me to do, or he's got me doing, is getting up and out of my chair, like as a rising and sitting. And I know when I was in Japan, my therapist there said, Scott, don't lose the ability to stand up. He said, whatever else you lose, because once you lose that ability, it's really hard to keep your other, you know what I mean? Like, and it builds, I know that now that I'm back doing the exercises again, my balance is better and I walk more steady and I feel more confident. It builds up those, they're not erector muscles. What are they on your legs and hips? Anyway, it makes you stand up, right? So those are good ones. I just wanted to say, we haven't talked about it in a while, but new people to the show, speaking of fitness, why do you weave back and forth during our shows?
Because I'm standing while I'm having this conversation. Since COVID, I started standing, and I stand about 70% of my waking day. So and I find that's a very good, matter of fact, I like driving way less because you have to sit to drive, but I stand way more now, and it's been extremely good practice for me. And I got to believe that the whole weight bearing kind of a thing, and you're moving, you're keeping things fluid and moving, you're creating more release of more synovial fluid through just kind of making those movements, even if they're micro movements. So so that's what I'm a fan of.
Well, and you move back and forth. You're not just standing still, right? You're like a perpetual motion machine.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's healthy. But you don't feel as much pain. You don't have as many medical issues. Not that you ever had many. You look younger. You feel younger. So yeah.
Well, actually, like even just like I know that I had lots of knee pain and hip pain in my 40s, knee pain, hip pain, elbow pain, shoulder pain in my 40s, like a lot of it. And now, like, I am way ahead in terms of my physical capacities today than I was like 25 years ago. So yeah,
that's true.
And that's one thing that is part of that. So
what was, sorry, I missed that
part. Doing the standing is a part of that, right? So yeah,
I know that. Sorry.
I was just going to say, we're probably going to wrap things up, right, Scott? Are we going to do our
just the last one for you here? You touched on it, and that's physical activity during the day is really important. But the flip side of that is get enough sleep. And when we sleep, and almost all of the what you can do sections, not just for kidneys, but for so many of our organs and our body systems, is that need for a good night's sleep. Make sure you get a good night's sleep. And statistics show that we are getting less sleep than we have ever gotten in modern history, in recorded history. And, the Industrial Revolution was supposed to give us more free time and more time to relax and be healthy. And so the truth is, the more industrialized we get, the more technologically advanced we get, the less sleep we have, the more mental strain we have. So, very interesting. And we'll do a show about that.
So I wonder if part of that is that we are also not being physically active because we're really all focused on mental and thinking kind of thing so much, and not doing the physically active things that would make you tired so your body will sleep. Right, when you were a young lad and you were toting bales and, you know, moving livestock and lifting bags of feed, when you laid your head on the pillow, you went to sleep, right? Because you were
Yeah,
physically, you've used your body hard, and then it knows that you need the rest, right? But if you haven't had that, and then you're not physically tired, and then your brain, you know, keeps doing its thing and talking and you know, keeping you awake or keeping you worried or keeping you, you know, that kind of thing, which when with detracts from good sleep, right? So
absolutely. And so I think that's a good place to wrap up tonight. And, you know, I guess the big takeaway is kidney disease, kidney issues are much more prevalent than we think. Get them tested because, you know, look up the symptoms if you're feeling bad. Make sure you get tested. Keep your diet good. Lose weight, exercise, get enough sleep. And that'll make you healthier, period, right? Not just
everywhere,
stuff.
yeah, all of those things are general type health. Yeah, right. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, no, makes sense.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
And next week, we're going to talk about the histamine system and allergies because they're becoming huge, both health problems and big business. And we're going to talk a little bit about how that looks in the modern mix of health and wellness and happiness.
Perfect. Take us home there, Scott.
Thank you so much from my very good friend, Alan Friesen, the acapellist, and myself, Scott Sweetman. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Thursday night, 7 p.m. on Just TV.
Gina Matson.